So that's it. That's how I built my arms. They grew to about 12 or 12.5 inches through not training them. And when I started applying these 5 principles, they grew at their biggest to 16 inches. What's going on YouTube, it's Jason, and in this video I'm going to be talking you through how I added 3 inches of muscle to my arms. Now, arms are what I describe as the showy muscles. Pretty much everyone, when they start training and want to gain some muscle, especially men, they all want bigger arms.
What is the first muscle you notice on a guy? When you look at a guy, what muscle are you looking at first?
It depends. If the top's really baggy and they've got a skinny arm, yeah, looking at biceps.
So I've been training nearly 20 years, and in that time I've made a lot of mistakes. But the 5 mistakes I'm going to go through in this video are the main ones that, when I fixed, actually allowed me to add some decent size to my arms. Number 1, and this might sound completely ridiculous, but I actually started training my arms. When I started training, I received some advice from some bodybuilders that said if you get stronger on your compound lifts, you know, your squats, bench press, deadlift, that kind of thing, your arms will just grow as a result of that. And to be honest, when I was new to training, because my body didn't know anything else, it worked and my arms started growing. But after the honeymoon period, you know, the first 6 to 12 months, the arm growth really slowed and the other muscle groups kept growing. And I started to notice that as a result, my physique wasn't looking as balanced. And so I started to do a bit of research into why my arm growth had stopped and whether they could actually get any bigger. And the more I did my research, the more I realized that those that respond to no arm training are people that are genetically gifted. Now, every single one of us has a body part that responds better to training. Mine personally is my back. I can put in half of the volume on my back and my back just responds really well. So in hindsight, the advice I received from the bodybuilders wasn't wrong, but they were people that were genetically gifted with big arms. So they can not train them and just do things like bent over rows, military presses and bench presses, and their arms will still grow. I don't naturally have big arms, so I had to actually train them 1 day a week on their own, and over time, my arms grew a lot bigger. So absolutely, include compound lifts in your training program, but don't forget to train your arms directly. And the second thing I did, kind of linked to the first point, but was an absolute game changer, is I actually started prioritizing my arm training. A lot of the training programs I was following up until that point, you know, Men's Health and these online forums were recommending training programs where you did chest and triceps or back and biceps. But after following these workouts over time, I found when it was time to actually train my arms at the end of the workout, my arms were absolutely shattered. As a result, I wasn't getting as strong or progressing as fast with my arm training. So I stopped twinning arms, and as I mentioned, I gave them their own separate day. And this made a huge difference. Because my arms weren't as exhausted, when I came to train them, I found I was a lot stronger. And as I was getting stronger, my arms grew. Now, having previously worked a 9 to 5, I understand that it's not always feasible for someone to have a separate arm workout. After all, you only have so much time to train. If you are someone who is time poor, I would recommend avoiding training the secondary muscle after the primary muscle. For example, people often do chest and triceps. If you've trained your chest, you've worked your triceps as a secondary muscle. So instead, if I was time poor, I would do chest and biceps because your bicep would be relatively fresh. The third thing I did was focus on getting stronger. So applying a principle called progressive overload, where you get stronger over time. Now, this is really important because all the advice that was out there at the time, in the gyms, online, in magazines like Men's Health, was about chasing the pump. Now, the pump was made popular by Arnie, and because obviously Arnie was massive, everybody just followed this as gospel.
Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump.
But the reality is, Arnie and a lot of these bodybuilders were enhanced. Lifting light weights and doing loads of reps to chase the pump might work for someone who's enhanced, but it definitely won't work for a natural lifter. Just like with training every other muscle group, aim to get stronger when training your arms. Log down the weights that you're lifting and look to get stronger over time. The fourth point, and this might sound slightly contradictory to my third point, but focus on your technique. The ego lifting in the gym, because of things like lad culture and social media, has so many people lifting weights that are too heavy for them. And this is a really important point, especially for younger lifters who are trying to compete with their friends. Yes, you want to get stronger, yes, you need to get stronger, but if you're training with incorrect form, you are literally training a different muscle group. For example, I could do barbell curls, and I could start swinging and getting my back into it. Now, although I'll be able to lift more weight, what I might find is my lower back and my supporting muscles might get stronger. Yes, my biceps will get stronger, but since the muscle isn't actually being worked and activated properly, I'm not going to progress as fast. So again, one of the things I had to address, because I started off on the wrong footing, is I had to address my form, and to do so, I had to initially drop the weights I was lifting and build back up again. Now initially, I'm not going to lie, it was tough, because back then, being strong was the thing. We didn't really know about all the other principles. So you'd see someone in the gym who was like either smaller than you or younger than you, and they're lifting more weight than you. But over time, I cared less because my arms were actually responding and getting bigger. So leave your ego at the door, focus on the muscle you're trying to work, maybe even drop the weight, focus on trying to do 2 seconds on the way down and 1 on the way up, and over time, I promise you, your arms are going to get a lot bigger. And number 5 might sound obvious, but eat enough. Eating enough has 2 headings, enough calories and enough protein. When I first started training, one of the big mistakes I made was seeing some of these chiseled fitness models and thinking I wanted to have abs. So I was actually trying to eat to stay lean and actually taking my eye off muscle growth. So I was training really hard, but eating in a calorie deficit and hoping I was going to gain loads of muscle. Now, I'm not going to get too much into this. I do discuss this further in another video about how to lose fat and build muscle at the same time, but it's not an optimal way to do things when you're trying to build muscle in a deficit. So if your muscles are a lagging body part or they're not really responding, try and aim to eat between 1 and 400 calories over your maintenance. The lower end if you're more advanced and the higher end if you're a beginner. Also, don't undereat your protein, so make sure you're getting around 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So that's it, that's how I built my arms. My arms started at around 10 inches, I was quite young. They grew to about 12 or 12.5 inches through not training them, and when I started applying these 5 principles, they grew at their biggest to 16 inches. Now I know that's 4 inches, but my body fat was a bit higher. So when I actually leaned down to like 15%, my arms then were 15.5. People don't realize this, but the higher your body fat is, the bigger your muscles will be. Like the circumference of your arm, if you're 30% body fat, will be bigger than if you're 20%. But as far as I'm concerned, that's not muscle, so it doesn't count. So don't confuse big arms for fat arms. Try and get down to about 15% body fat if you can, and measure your arms then. Now the final thing I'll say is to be patient. Building muscle is not like fat loss. It's less predictable and it takes time, but it will take an absolute lifetime if you're making the same mistakes that I was making. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Apply those 5 things and take your arm growth to a new level. If you did find this video helpful, don't forget to like it. Comment below, let me know how you found it. Subscribe to the channel. I see a lot of people are watching these videos and not subscribing. And I'll see you again soon.